Promised you guys that as things required, we would go back in live, and now we have a tornado warning. So I really felt confident we would probably see one or two. We've got our tornado warning that was just issued right now, and it's a very small portion of the line. For Nelson and Washington County, you are under a tornado warning. Severe thunderstorm warnings remain in effect for Shelby, Spencer County, Bullitt, Nelson County, Hardin, Meade, and Breckenridge County. But what's occurring here on the line is we have a more intense portion where we're seeing a little bit of a merger occurring. So with that merger occurring, we've seen a little bit of a spin up in that rotation. And let's look at radar and what we have going on across the area. For what it's worth, the lightning on this thing, you have excessive lightning. A lot of tornado warnings occurring as we go towards around the Maysville area. And we're looking closer at the area where the tornado warning was issued. So what you have seen here are two storms that kind of merge together. And when something like this happens, you can get one storm with X rotation, one storm with Y rotation. And when they merge, that rotation can come up and become a little bit more intense. So if you're in the Bloomfield area right now, you need to take your tornado safety precautions immediately. Downstairs, I need you underneath something. You've got to be in the center part of your house, and please keep away from windows. A dangerous storm moving into the Bloomfield area, and Rick's going to show you how we kind of had a merger occur with multiple cells as that was moving off towards the east. You can see there's a storm near Bardstown, and you can see how we're kind of bringing those together near the Bloomfield area. And again, that is the reason the tornado warning was issued, is we sometimes can see rotation coming up in intensity a little bit as we see mergers occurring. And looking at the velocity here, this is again our view of velocity here. The hard part on this is you're not seeing, and Rick, you know, I'll kind of ask you on your thoughts on this, but one of the issues that we have right now is that these are what we call QLCS tornadoes. They spin up very quickly. Many times it happens in between scans without a great amount of leadway. And so in that, what's occurring here, and you can see it a little bit better on this version of radar, you have kind of where these greens and the reds are coming together over Bloomfield, which indicate where we've got our rotation right now. Rick, this is a difficult situation when the Weather Service is in these particular scenarios because, as you know, you can get spin-ups very fast. We've got a number of reports of power outages from Charlestown. We had out of LG&E close to 10,000 without power. Duke, I believe, was 3 to 4. So there's a number of areas that are without power tonight, Rick. And this one is the first tornado warning we had. It's small, but you got to take these seriously.
Yeah, the size of the warning means absolutely nothing, so don't let that fool you. If you are inside that red box, if your town is included within that tornado warning, don't wait another second. Now is the time to get downstairs, get to your safe place, and do it as quickly as possible with the rest of your family, your pets, whoever you want to grab in the meantime. And if you have any neighbors or you have some friends perhaps that live in that area, make sure you let them know that there is danger right now with that tornado warning, which is ongoing. And the warning will last for 30 more minutes all the way through midnight. And what Mark has turned on is a product that we call normalized rotation. Basically what it does is it takes away all the clutter. Everything else you see on the screen. And what you would want to see is an area where you have green inside some of the bloom. We're not finding any strong signal that we are seeing a spin up, but these things can happen very quickly. They can happen between radar scans. We've turned over to velocity, and this one definitely supports some rotation where you have the greens to the south in that red area near Bloomfield. That's known as a couplet. So there is some rotation with inside the storm, and it does show why the National Weather Service has indeed warned this for a tornado, because there's definitely rotation, and these things can quickly drop to the ground and lift back up. Right. In terms of the cycling of this, it's going to be one of those scenarios where it appears and then disappears, but for now there is still a very broad area of rotation just to the south of the Bloomfield area, Mark.
And, you know, like you said, we look for these reds and these greens coming together here, and it is notable, the red near Bloomfield and then the green on the southern side here. So we're definitely getting rotation near the Bloomfield area. If you're in Bloomfield, you've got to take your tornado safety precautions immediately. If you're waiting, it's too late. You've got to be in that safe portion right now. If you're in Chaplin, please consider now getting into your tornado safe spot as the storm with the rotation moving towards you. These are the kinds of storms that traditionally don't produce your really powerful tornadoes, but they produce them very quickly. And so these can occur with very, very little warning. I think anybody knows that even if it's a weak tornado, it's going to do some damage. If it's a moderate level one, obviously the damage can be excessive and extreme, but you've got to prepare now in Chaplin for potential severe weather moving into that area. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the regular reflectivity that you guys are used to seeing. And you can also note here that there's a little bit of a hail core as well showing up over the Bloomfield area. This is one of our stronger storms. We have seen an evening where we have had a lot of warnings, and most of those warnings have been for 70 and up to 80-mile-an-hour winds. We've got a lot of damage reports. What has happened here is the National Weather Service, honestly, when it comes to the reports, just can't keep up. We've received so many reports of damage, especially as you go along and north of I-64. This one in Kentucky is one of our stronger storms that we have seen. You'll notice that the severe thunderstorm warnings, there's not as many of them now. Shelby County remains under a severe thunderstorm warning. We've got this tornado warning that remains in effect for Nelson and for Washington County in Kentucky. And then I believe Marion County remains under a severe thunderstorm warning. And so these are the warnings that we still have left over in our area. Not as many warnings here as we once saw. Rick, you're looking at that from the terminal radar here near the Mount Washington area. And even if we're not getting a tornado out of this line, I think you're probably seeing the same thing I am. It's definitely bowing out in that area.
Yeah, and like we saw, I mean, this area bowed out and it was able to catch up to a tiny little shower, and that interaction of those two individual little pieces did create a quick spin up. Could that happen again? Absolutely. So this is one of those scenarios where you have to sort of be on top of this with each and every minute and stay with it until the threat is over at your house. Just want to let you know that the tornado watch has now been canceled for Louisville Metro, which means the rest of the area, basically if you're south of I-64, still on guard for some severe storms. Most of you are under warnings, and then if you live south of those warnings, the severe weather has not made it to your area just yet, so hang in there. Your turn is definitely coming. We did see the evolution of this storm, and let me go through this one more time just to show you how quickly these things can unfold. So there's a burst of rain around Bardstown. That's moving forward each and every minute. You can see that going at the top right of your screen. Here we are at 11:23, and then 11:26, 11:28 is when those two merge. Potential for a quick spin up, and now it does look like it's gone back over to more of a unidirectional sort of wind scenario where we are getting a little bowing segment coming out of the Bloomfield area. The strongest winds will certainly be at the center or the apex, so this could pass just to the north of Willisburg, just through Bloomfield, probably missing Mackville in terms of the most powerful winds, but you can still get some gusts around 50, 60 miles per hour. We've seen so many reports of power outages, and now with people not having the ability to watch TV, it's just a great reminder to have multiple ways to get these warnings to keep you and your family safe. Your cell phone's one. You just want to make sure you have the alerts turned on. You can do that inside the WDRB weather app, which, by the way, is free to download. And then also you can have a weather radio sort of as just another scenario or another safe way to have a backup plan just in case the battery on your cell phone happen to die. I mean, you never know these days. There's also a strong signal. I'm going to go back over to Storm View 3D, Mark, and just to the north and to the east of Bloomfield, we've seen a pretty significant pop
of hail
in terms of the hail, and that it could also be a sign this thing may be gaining a little bit of strength. We watch the lightning and the hail because they can kind of tell us the behavior and what these storms plan on doing ahead of the line.
And you know, one of the things, by the way, to keep in your severe weather safety kit is just what we call a brick. So your little mobile charging. It is a really good idea nowadays because a lot of us are always getting our weather information via our phone. It's a very simple thing. I've got it set up here on the side. Honestly, that includes my phone. So I always keep one of these bricks with me. This one in particular is worth about 4 charges. But anytime you get potential for severe, put the brick on the charger, these mobile chargers, and that way if you were listening on your phone, if the power went out, if you needed that phone, let's say for a flashlight, you've got multiple charges. So I keep 2 of these actually in my laptop bag. Not bad to keep in your severe weather safety area. So we've got a pop of hail here right now that is north of the Bloomfield area. I don't think we're talking about huge hail, but nonetheless, that could be producing some 3/4 to 1 inch size hail. Hail earlier in the day was big. We got some hail reports earlier on that storm that was near the Hart-LaRue County line of golf balls. So here's where we stand right now. And Rick, what I want to do also as well is take a look at the 3D on this storm if we could. But we've got here the area of rotation that we're monitoring right now. Still showing up. I would say it again remains some rotation that we need to watch. I believe I have no problems with this tornado warning. And as we look at the three-dimensional view on this storm, the earlier storms that we saw went up as high as around 42,000 feet. And so when we look at this particular storm, here is the 30,000 foot line and here's the 40,000 foot line. So you can see this is one of our taller storms that we have seen that's extending and punching through the 40,000 foot line. 40,000 feet from miles is 8 miles above the ground. I mean, it gives you an idea of what you're talking about. You know, the big supercell thunderstorms, some of the monsters like what we saw in 2012 can punch 65 to 70,000 feet. But you think about it, a storm going 8 miles up into the atmosphere, it's impressive. That's the view of the storm right now. Continuing with severe thunderstorm warnings right now. Bardstown, you're not under a tornado warning, but I'm concerned about you potentially seeing 60-mile-an-hour winds. The worst has moved through Louisville. Springfield and Willisburg still in the path of 60-mile-an-hour winds. That also includes in Anderson County in the Lawrenceburg area and the Salvisa area. As we track that portion of the line, and it has been interesting because there's different parts of the line moving in different directions. And the reason is that cold air, that air that's surging out ahead of the storms is affecting the trajectory. But I've got this in Willisburg 4 minutes from now. I've got it in Springfield 10 minutes from now. Loretto, 60-mile-an-hour winds are in play in 17 minutes. That's not the 80s we saw earlier. 60s can still do damage, and they can take down trees, and they're the real deal. The National Weather Service, you'll notice the warning is a little bit smaller, and it's because they status updated. They have chosen to continue with the severe thunderstorm warning, and I just want to look at the chat here on that latest warning to make sure that I've got the information. Weather Service right now is continuing the tornado warning as it stands. Not a huge hail producer in Nelson or Washington County. This is in effect until midnight. It's the middle of the night. For us, there's no reason for us not to stay on during this, so we'll stay with it. 60-mile-an-hour winds on the warning that is Anderson, Marion, Nelson, Washington County within our area. That warning goes until 12:15. One of the nice things about our scenario here is overnight severe weather is the worst. I don't think you need me to explain it, but you know, when people are trying to go to bed and get warnings, it can cause the worst. It can cause some of the highest fatality rates that we see in tornadoes. And we saw that in the Nashville tornado and the Cookeville tornado. When you get a tornado in the middle of the night, a lot of people are not prepared. So the reason I mention this is going to be clearing our area within the next hour. I think we'll have an all clear for most of the area by 1 to 2 a.m., which is something that's really positive. But for our area, Rick, this is no question the main portion of the line. For those that are wondering, by the way, what happened to the Louisville radar earlier, Rick, we were watching that at 8:59 when the radar went out. The National Weather Service did assess the motor on the pedestal went out. So they can't climb the tower because there was lightning around to fix the motor. Radar, like your car, can fail. Is it me? Or does it feel like sometimes it's always at the most inopportune time?
Especially with my car, too. Speaking of car failure, I mean, I am infamous for that. Yeah, the timing terrible. Thankfully, you have multiple radars, and you got to think of radars kind of like cell towers. These things are strategically positioned around the area, so that way, when they scan, they can sort of supplement each other and overlap some spots. So we are sort of using radar to our advantage, the multiple radars we have. Ideally, we'd like to have the Louisville one up and running because that gives us the best view of these storms, but we have other radar and other sources we can tap into to make sure we have the information you need to know moving forward to help keep you safe. We have the tornado warning until midnight, which means it will last another 18 minutes if you live inside that box along the Bluegrass Parkway in, let's say, areas like Bush Grove. If you're in the Tatham Springs area, basically, no matter what, inside that red box, there is the threat for not only a brief spin up, but there's also going to be some straight line winds potentially.
We now join our
need to take seriously as well. Lots of heavy rain, some intense lightning. The hail core itself seems to be moving just north of you. It's just inside the warned box. So around Bloomfield, you may be hearing that pinging coming down, or maybe even a bit louder with some of that hail, which could be up to a quarter in diameter. But right now, it's all about the wind, and it's all about that tornado threat for the Bloomfield area, and that's going to continue to journey off to the east pretty rapidly here. The one thing about these storms is they're not moving 20, 30 miles an hour. They are speeding 40, 50 miles an hour. They don't last very long, but they are certainly intense. The tornado warning itself, when you look at the rotation in there, it's not really that textbook sort of appearance that screams tornado, but certainly enough rotation within inside there that we're concerned that there may be a brief spin up, and that's the kind of scenario we're in. You're not going to get a long track, strong, powerful tornado that does extensive damage, but what can happen is in this sort of scenario, you get one little area of winds which accelerate out. It creates a little turbulence, a little spin in the atmosphere, can drop a quick tornado, do a little damage, and then it will go back up in the storm. That's what we're looking at, folks. We're not dealing with those high-end sort of scenario. And Mark, looks like you have some more information for us over at the wall.
Yeah, Rick, so I apologize for jumping in there. We're getting a number of reports now out of Anderson County and out of Washington County. So we just got a report out of Willisburg that hail's falling. Buffalo, Kentucky reported some hail earlier. Getting reports now out of Anderson County that the power is out here. I got a viewer right now, Paige, that is in Chaplin. Paige, please make sure that you're in your safe spot right now. She is saying that they're getting hit hard right now with wind, hail, and lots of rain. So the hail that, Rick, you and I are seeing is legitimate. We're getting those reports verifying from Willisburg, Chaplin, and Bloomfield that there is indeed hail falling within this storm. So you can see this is where Willisburg is. That hail is out a little bit ahead of that storm. The Chaplin area, which would be right here, Chaplin is reporting that and there you go, Chaplin right here, east of Bloomfield, also reporting hail, strong winds, and very heavy rain. Chaplin, like I said to the person that gave the report, you got to be in your safe spot right now. You've got to be careful here. Three-dimensional view of the storm, it's always amazing, and you can kind of see that hail shaft as it fires up vertical, pushing over 40,000 feet on the top of this storm. This is one of our taller storms that we've seen across our area. But the area of rotation right now is very, very close to the Chaplin area. So you've got to be in your tornado safe spot right now. I believe that has drifted off a little bit further to the east is that radar image. And there you go. That's the most recent radar image. So the area of rotation right now would be just off to the south of the Chaplin area. Area of rotation right now is just off to the Chaplin area. And Rick, if we could, let's also put on reflectivity as well there on the most recent frame, because I'm curious, we're getting the reports of hail out of the Willisburg area, and yeah, that makes sense. So here is the most recent scan. I'm going to take over real quickly over there, Rick. I just want to move off to the east here a little bit. But you can see on the right side is your traditional radar, what you're used to seeing. And you can even see, Rick, this thing now has a little bit of a hook on the edge of it near the Willisburg and Mackville area. The rotation is embedded. So here, I want to tell you something. I say it all the time. There's no reason to go outside and look at a tornado. There is no reason to try to do that, especially if it's coming towards you, because it can be a killer. But it's embedded. Area rotation is near the Willisburg area, and it's pouring right there. So you're not going to see anything. LG&E right now reporting 8,000 without power. Duke Energy has 3,000 without power. Clark County's reporting 2,400 without power. And Willisburg right now, Andy, if you could in my ear, is that is that the number?
Tornado warning.
The tornado warning is being allowed to expire?
Canceled.
Okay, so it is canceled. So I think that what we see here is the rotation on this one. It's been hard. It is hard sometimes when we're looking at things that are not the higher end, because it's difficult to What we want to do is we want to stay with tornado warnings. We feel like we have an obligation to you guys whenever there's a tornado warning issued. We always try to give our live analysis on air. But since the tornado warning has been allowed to expire, the rotation here had come up briefly. I agree that the right move was to drop the tornado warning. Concerned most about damaging winds right now, Chaplin, Willisburg through just south of Bardstown. Think about it in the Lebanon area and Marion County. Up to 60-mile-an-hour winds are possible. Rain here in Louisville with some back-edge lightning. It can crawl across the base of the rain. It can be very interesting to see if you've never seen the crawler type of anvil lightning. You may be able to get some of that spiderweb lightning out there. But Willisburg through south of the Bardstown area, we're going to give you a final track here. Springfield 4 minutes from now. I need you in Lebanon to prepare for 60-mile-an-hour winds 21 minutes from now. Danville 25 in Lancaster 38 minutes from now. I always say this, it doesn't matter if you're the county that we have with the largest number of population or the county you have with the lowest. We're going to cover you. We're going to cover you if there's a threat to life and property. With the tornado warning being allowed to expire, we're going to return you back to programming. We'll continue to monitor the storms. Keep it right here on WDRB for continuing weather updates.
It's pretty late. I think I've got time to run some more simulations on the cooling system.